it would have been like chocolate. Do you know what I mean? It would have been something like that. Do you know what I mean? It would have
Just
been
at the shops.
yeah, shops. And we used to all hang around in this, you know, they used to have this big ice skating rink called Fiesta when I was a kid. And you would get the congregation of all the, you know, dysfunctional children from the areas. Do you know what I mean? Different areas coming together and they would all be hanging out there. And I was from the town centre, the Stonehouse area. And that was, you know, the place that you went. And, you know, within them places, you know, the dynamics that go on, you know, were mental. There were some great times there, probably some best times of my childhood there, but some of the most awful times too. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, it kind of like, you know, I believe I've kind of got a very addictive personality. And, you know, as a child left to my own devices, I used to be up there from like 8 o'clock in the morning till it shut 10 o'clock at night.
What was that?
A big ice skating rink full of one-armed bandits. Do you know what I mean? But it was huge. This was a big square meter place.
One-armed bandits.
One-armed bandits. And
what's that?
Fruit machines.
Oh, okay.
Fruit machines.
Okay.
Fruit machine. And I was a wizard at them. I was a wizard, Gaz, at fruit machines. You know, I could get you the jackpot on any fruit machine, more or less, especially like each way nudger, light up a light. I could tell you the reels, what fruit was behind it. So when people had the nudges, they would give me 20p, I would get them the jackpot. Do you know what I mean? That soon escalated. You know, I'd be bloody, you know, hooked on. You know, I'd be obsessed with these. Remember, I've got stuff going on at home. Yeah, I don't want to be at home. It's fucking chaos at home. Yeah. So I'm looking for ways to kind of fix that internal kind of setup. And fruit machine addiction kind of took me away from all that as a kiddie.
How old was you then?
I was about 8 years old.
Wow.
About 8 years old. You know, you're kind of prone to wrong uns. You're hanging around with a lot of older guys. Do you know what I mean? You know, in dodgy circumstances. But I was feeling like the little mascot in the embrace of all that for a period of time. You know, I was kind of, you know, groups of us used to just steam the shops. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, they'd be getting me to fill up the bag to walk out because I'm young. I'd get away with it if I was caught. And, you know, it just kind of progressed. It led. Before I knew it, I was feeding a fruit machine addiction. Before I knew it, you know, I'm strimming fruit machines. You know, before I know it, I'm popping them open with bloody screwdrivers to get the money out of there. You know, my whole life and being was consumed around that kind of environment. And I really kind of, that was in an enjoyable way of life for me for many years, you know. Plymouth was quite awash with like arcades. You used to have Futurama down the road. You had Top Rank, that was another skating ring. That was all closed, turned into a big rave place later on, years down the road. And you had Leisure Inn, you had Dusters, you know, they were all fruit machine where all the youngsters used to hang out in, you know. But when you're hanging out in these places, you also get a lot of wrong ones hanging out in them places. Do you know what I mean? So you're subject, and you see a lot of stuff that you shouldn't really see as a child. And Plymouth was awash with that. You know, I remember there was big lorry parks where the pavilions was before Sainsbury's was there. Lorry parks. I used to go along with guys. We tapping the lorry. Can we look after your lorry? Do you know what I mean? I would hear of stories where some of them would get grabbed out by the lorry drivers. Do you know what I mean? And you know, proper abuse. You know, but that's how it was. You know, Plymouth was like, you know, built really after it was fucking blitzed in the war. So the structure of it, do you know what I mean? It took time to kind of reform it and, you know, get it where it needed to be. But, you know, Plymouth, for the place it was in the early kind of 80s, 90s, you know, was awash with a lot of kind of wrong dynamics, covered up by a lot of hierarchy. Do you know what I mean? That are no longer there, really. And very sad to say, you know, which causes huge dysfunction later on in generations.
Did you have any sort of positive influences
as a kid?
Yeah.
Well, I was kind of like, I found myself kind of like, I did, you know, I had a few good role models around me. Do you know what I mean? But the role models I looked at, they were all like top thieves. They were like going to Europe thieving and, do you know what I mean? Doing walk-ins on, you know, they were burgling jewelry shops. They were doing walk-ins on hotels. They were getting, you know, big money. And that's the kind of, you want to aspire to be like. I certainly did. Good friend of mine, he's dead now. God bless you, Jason Ford. You know, one of the best walking thieves I ever knew at the time. Really good looking fella. You know, I used to use the gear with Jason later on in life. And, you know, he was just like a money magnet. Money magnet. He would walk into a property and before you know it, he'd find your life savings. You know what I mean? You know, I sit here today and I'll say it like it's some, you know, awful to be
Mm.
stealing someone's life savings. But
Mm.
at the time, that's what I adhered to. That was the kind of role models in my life I wanted to aspire to be like, because
Yes.
I had known really nothing different. Schooling, I went to the local Oxford Street school, to appease my father. Do you know what I mean? He even sent me out to Plymstock Comprehensive School from the city centre, because he grew up in Plymstock in the Who area, to kind of, to try and, give me a better way of life. But all I was interested was shoplifting down at the Broadway every day when I was there.
Mm.
VHS videotapes. I used to have a buyer, I used to have a doorman in the Fiesta, and he would buy as many videotapes as you could get. And when you're young and you're a shoplifter, you could get some videotapes. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
You'd be getting like $2.50 a tape off him, and that's a lot of money when you're a kid. Do you know what I mean? 40 odd years ago, and I'm not going to mention his name. You know he is if he sees this, but he must have some bloody video collection these days, I'll tell you.
What did you do with all that money?
Well, I was quite a shrewd kid, believe it or not. I had a fruit machine addiction going on. I had an addiction to thieving, shoplifting. I was a prolific shoplifter. I became a prolific shoplifter. I became an individual that kind of, got banned from every store in town. And, you couldn't go in. There wasn't a great deal of CCTV back in the day. I used to have a big German Shepherd, long-haired Alsatian, and he would, every command he would do for me, I could set him on to anyone, yeah? I should take him shoplifting me, so no store detector would come near me. They'd be paranoid, all the police would be called out, but I'd be in and out of town with him. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't come near me. And it was just that kind of extra protection. He was called Eric, he was.
Wow.
First time I ever took acid, Eric, I was out at night with him, and I took an acid tab, and he started growling at me. He kind of knew the road I was heading on.
Ah.
Funny how dogs sense this stuff. Do you know what I mean, guys?
Yeah.
And
How old was he then?
so about 16,
Mm.
yeah. Because my life didn't really, evolve until about 16 around, substance abuse and addiction, to substances and whatnot. But it's always been chaos.